between what has happened during training and what the output is. Hopefully that helps to demonstrate and give an example of that without going into too much technical detail. It's important to note that right now, after 3 months training, or the equivalent of 288 years of training, this black box no longer contains the original training data. It only contains the parameters, the connections between data points. So even though we fed it with books, those books do not exist in the model anymore. Only little snippets of text connected to other snippets of text, sometimes with dozens or hundreds of connections to get to. An example here might be this black box has 175 billion parameters or synapses or connections, and some larger AI models now have up to 1 trillion, and we're breaking that point, 1 trillion connections. If we wanted to copy the human brain and get the same count of neurons and synapses, we would have to get 86 billion in terms of neuron data count. And in terms of synapses, we'd have to get to 500 trillion parameters. So 500 times larger than what we currently have. So after this 3 months of training, the researchers, the scientists, couldn't actually tell you the result. They know that there's a black box. They know that you can query this black box with anything. If it's got language, you can ask it anything or give it a problem and it will give a response. But other than that, they don't actually know what happened in those 3 months, and they don't know what's inside the output, besides the fact that it exists. In fact, a whole bunch of very smart scientists at a very big university called Stanford said, "We currently lack a clear understanding of how they work, when they fail, and what they are even capable of due to their emergent properties." This is about AI models. In plain English, they're saying we don't know how the AI models work in 2022 because it's so new. And there are researchers trying to figure out what is in here, what's going on in here, but right now we don't have an explanation, beside the fact that it's made a lot of connections and it's able to do some incredible stuff. What does this final output look like? A black box is one way of describing it. What about, because we use Jello crystals, what about some sort of jelly making happening in there after the 288 years worth of computing? Or what about a whole bunch of bouncy balls being released and finding connections between themselves? These are thousands of colorful balls bouncing down a street in California a few years ago for the Sony Bravia ad. Maybe it would look like a real human brain, and we're certainly trying to get there. We can compare this entire design, this AI model, with your brain. Your brain can store just over 1 terabyte of data, and the original jar also holds just under 1 terabyte of data. Right now in 2022, what we do know is we can now query this black box, this model, with any prompt. We could say, write me a book. And it's done that quite a few times. Over 100 different books have been published from a black box AI model. We could also ask it, write me a song, write me a poem. We could give it an entire email and say, summarize this into 3 bullet points, and it will do it. And the opposite of that, we can say, here's 3 bullet points, expand that into an entire essay, and it will do that. Pretty useful for school, right? We're still finding out what it can do. We can feed it messed up text, and it can find out where those spaces should go and what those words should be and convert it into plain language. If you tell this model it's an expert, say I am an expert at this, it pretends to be an expert. If you tell a model, please list out the steps, it lists out the steps. Right now in 2022, this is the state of the art. This black box is going to ensure that humanity evolves to a completely new and exciting evolution. We originally started with agriculture, then we had factories through industry. Good morning. Here we are, ready to rock. GPT-3 and Google Sheets. This model is like 2.5 years old now. In November 2022, yet we're still finding out cool things it can do, and most people are still not aware of it. So we're going to make you aware of it. We're going to use a really, really simple tool to move away from the playground and put it inside the equivalent of Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets Online. Welcome to a whole bunch of people. I think there are Core R from Canada. I think we've got a whole bunch of US people here. In Perth, we're 8:31 in the morning. I've got a Perth cam here somewhere that'll show us we're on the way to 30 degrees Celsius today, which is about 83, 84 Fahrenheit. Wherever you are in the world, including Joe in Ireland, hello. And I'm glad you can join us. It's primarily for America because I know you guys have got like a Sunday evening on the West Coast, maybe a Sunday night in New York. But I'm glad that Ireland could be joining us and Europe could be joining us because it must be about midnight there. You guys are smashing the midnight oil. Cool. So we're going to be playing around with some hands-on stuff. You're welcome to play around with me if you like in Google Sheets. The instructions are really, really simple, but if you want to just watch, that's cool as well. Here's what we're going to be doing. So it's like a 5-step process, maybe even less. And at the end of that, we're going to have access to some incredible outputs from GPT-3, and it can do stuff that it probably shouldn't be able to do. Here's an example. Take a look at my screen here, which is an output on Google Sheets that is using GPT-3 in the background. So in green, this is a bunch of emails that I've just smashed together. And over on the right-hand side in red, we've got a little GPT script that's calling out GPT-3, feeding in the green cell next to it, and then outputting, in this case, a clean first name and a clean company. I think you can see how this might be useful for passing emails and playing around with emails. Note that it doesn't actually need anything inside the signature. I was trying to trick it here. If you look at row 6 here, this cell, this guy's talking about preferring different companies, but it still picks his company out as the clean company. So it finds his name. In this one above, it finds his name, even though his name's not in the signature, and it finds his company. So think about how this might be useful for auto replies in emails or just messing around. This is way beyond regular expressions. This is using the power of GPT-3 and its pre-trained brain to find connections inside text. All right, let's do a really fast version and then we'll bring it right back. You can find all the instructions for this at LifeArchitect.ai/sheets. And I will type that in now so we can have a quick look at that. Basically, that gives you the examples that are available, each of the steps that are available, and you can step through that really, really easily. So here's LifeArchitect.ai/sheets. I don't know if you may have used this link before. It's called sheets.new. Of course, you can go straight to sheets.google.com and create a new sheet, but here's a really fast link that'll allow you to do that even quicker. I'm going to click that, sheets.new. That'll create a new sheet for me. And then the second step there, I'm not even going to give it a title here, is to go to extensions, app script. There's going to be no coding today at all, just a little bit of scripting, but you could even ignore that. So you could do this whole thing, copy and paste, not having ever touched a line of code before. You will have to insert an API key, but that's pretty simple. So I'm going to click here, extensions, app script. Let's have a look at our next step here. Overwrite all text in the box by pasting all the code below. So I'm going to select all this, copy and paste. I'm going to delete what's already in that app script. I'm going to paste this in. The only thing you have to do here is replace your API secret key, the little piece of text there, with your actual secret key. And you can get that by going to this link here. It's the API keys, and clicking create new secret key and copying and pasting that in. Super simple. Once you're done, click the save icon, then the run icon, and away we go. It'll look something like this. Let's grab a really simple example here. Let's grab countries here. And we will start it from scratch. I'm going to copy this step 6 here, this Excel formula or this Sheets formula. I'm going to whack it straight into B1. If the cell next to me is blank, do nothing. But if it's not blank, give it this prompt, send it to GPT-3. Answer in one word. The capital of the cell next to me is excellent. I should have put a header in here, but I'm not going to. Let's find the capital of Australia. I have not actually run my script here, my mistake. Let's find the capital of Australia in a sheet where I've actually run the script. Canberra. Can we find the capital of the US? That's a pretty easy one. What about Uzbekistan? Excellent. All right, let's slow this down a little bit so we can step through what's actually going on here. So let's kill all of those things that we've just built and do it all again, but super slowly. So I hope that you already use Google Sheets online. It's using the equivalent of Microsoft Excel, but it means it's always saving, it's always shared, anyone can use it, and it's got history built into it. It's got a lot of the same formulas and functionality of Excel, but it's a lot cleaner. Let's do this one as live 1. Once you've created your new sheet, we're essentially embedding a little script inside this. And the script is going back to OpenAI's playground. I know that a lot of you have already used the playground. The playground is one way of accessing GPT-3. Another way is the command line interface. Another way is the API directly. So you'll look at applications like Emerson or Jasper AI that are hitting GPT-3 via a programmatic API. But we're ignoring the playground here, and we're going to hit GPT-3 directly through this scripting. And Google Sheets allows us to add any type of script into the sheet. So I'm going to extensions and apps script here to essentially write my own script. And if you've already had a look through the script that's available on LifeArchitect.ai/sheets, you'll see that, and I'm just replacing this function here, you'll see that it's a pretty simple script. In fact, it's already got a bit of duplication. If you are a programmer, you can extend this script. You can send more parameters into the function besides prompt. For example, you could send token count and engine name or model name. You could send temperature. You could get really funky with it so that you could do different temperatures and different token counts for each cell. That's not too interesting for us today. We're just going to send the exact prompt. But have a look at how simple it is. It's essentially saying, go and hit the completions endpoint for GPT-3 and send the prompt. Nothing more advanced than that. Once you've inserted your API key, which once again you find from your OpenAI account, which is free. Everything you do today should be free. GPT-3 is useful for about 900,000 tokens, might be about 700,000 words. So you can probably write a book or two for free just with your $18 worth of credit because it's so much cheaper now. It used to be 6 cents per token. It's now 2 cents, per 1,000 tokens. It's now 2 cents per 1,000 tokens. Once you've created a new secret key, you copy and paste that into your script. Save it and run it. You could give it a name if you like, but it's really as simple as that. Any questions, throw them into the chat and we will play around with it. I've got some people commenting that they use DaVinci for everything. Now look, DaVinci is probably the most useful engine for most things, especially around flexibility, creativity, for chatbots. So Lita does use DaVinci, and we could uncomment this and comment out text DaVinci 002. DaVinci is the original GPT-3 engine, and it was so flexible and sometimes so politically incorrect, or at least wasn't following human instructions, that they fine-tuned it, and they fine-tuned it on human instructions and released that in January 2022. They called the new model Text DaVinci 002, and that is now the default engine when you go into the playground. It'll start you up in Text DaVinci 002, which is a human-instructed version of GPT-3. I've actually got a look at the benefits of Text DaVinci 002, and this graphic was called Instruct GPT in the paper because they used human instructions. It's 84% more truthful than DaVinci. It's got 1.5 years more knowledge because their dataset ended in June 2021. That was the cutoff for the popular web and the common crawl web. And it's also aligned with being more helpful, honest, and harmless. It has a larger context window, so you can go all the way to 4,000 tokens. And it's less hallucinative, which is probably a useful thing. All right, back to our stream here. So the reason that we're using Text DaVinci 002 here is that it usually is smarter for deterministic data, for logic. It's more structured, it's trying to understand what you mean, and it is in some ways less flexible. It's been designed to be a little bit more brittle. So Text DaVinci 002 is our default there, and that'll automatically be ready to run. You just need to insert your API key. Let's play around with some of the options here for getting really, really funky with our outputs now that we've got this script running. So remember, we're saving this and then we're running this, and it will be ready inside our sheet. Let me actually save this. I'll give myself a top view while I put in my new secret key. And we'll put this into my script, and I will save that, and I will run that. It does give me a prompt to review permissions and to make sure that I am happy for this to reach out to GPT-3 from Sheets. Once I've connected to that external service, then I'm all happy. Cool, that's a really quick run. All right, we're back. Let's grab some of our examples from here. This was one of my favorite examples. Let's first check that we've got a hit to GPT-3. It's half a result, Koala. Okay. This was one that I had a bit of fun with. You can obviously do all sorts of things that would be particularly useful, but I was just having a play with what was available and how creative I could get it to be. If the cell next to me is not blank, concatenate the start of that with the word project, but ask GPT for the action, the cell next to me, in little quotes, pick the most clever, funny secret project code name, and then in 1 or 2 words, the secret code name is project. I've got a trailing space in there. I should not have a trailing space in there for GPT-3. It just wants to put its own spaces in because all of its tokens had spaces before they began. So we don't want a trailing space before our prompt. So this is going to design project names for anything we give it. And I'm open to suggestions here, but what about this one? A project name for go live on YouTube. Project broadcast. That one's cool. And silly. Keep in mind, GPT-3 is not looking out on the web. It doesn't touch the internet. It doesn't go and look up a database. It looks at its own brain. And if you watch the trailer before we started this live stream, you'll see that it's able to go out and, go in and go into its black box and find connections between words. So go live on YouTube might be project broadcast. What about a keyword like go to sleep? And we'll just drag this down a little. We'll give us a little nice red background as well. Project Sleepy Time. Excellent. So silly. What about Project Bomb Twitter? Project Twitter Bomb. Well, that's not amazing. What else have we got here? Project Twitterverse. Maybe. What about take out the trash? Keyword project take out. Keyword take out the trash gives us name project trash can. I don't know about that one. You'll see Text DaVinci is trying to be pretty deterministic. Some of these are good, some of these not so good. You'll notice because I gave it a limitation of only 10 tokens to be returned, it's actually cutting off this result. And sometimes it gives us another or a duplicate project keyword here, project word. Project sabbatical has a fill-in for go on vacation. What about project generate images using AI? What would be a cool project name for that one? Project Giraffe. Excellent. Makes absolutely no sense at all. Thanks, Alicia. Going swimming off the pier. We are using a lower latency today, but I still see about a 10-second delay. Project Dolphin for going swimming off the pier. And null. If we have a keyword of null, we get project null or project nothing. Cool, that was fun. Let's try a different one. We played around with countries. We saw how the emails work, but I wanted to show you in more detail how these emails sit. So if you receive an email body and you want to extract a clean first name and a clean company, it's pretty easy to do. Again, this is probably something that you could integrate into a commercialized app, and I don't think it's been done yet. Obviously, it's a pretty easy one to do, but I don't think I've seen it yet. All right, here's an example of body without a signature. Steve here at Costco, let's go to lunch. If I wanted to ask GPT to find that sender's first name, here's something that I might put in here. Oh. If the cell next to me is blank, do nothing. Otherwise, grab the entire body, then instruct GPT, the sender's first name is no trailing space. Pretty simple. I bet we could do the same thing by copying that out and putting it into the clean company cell. It's still looking for A2 next to us. We'll just say the sender's company name is no trailing space. Fantastic. And I got really funky here trying to trick it. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be 99%. So don't expect it to always get a perfect example here. Another one without a signature. This guy doesn't actually mention his company, but he does mention the name Verizon. That's a pretty nasty answer, actually. Well, we're going to go with it. If we try and trick it with a whole bunch of text in an email in the body that mentions Target and Kmart and Costco, but does have the name Walmart after his name because it's in his signature, Let's ask this to be just in one word. Might need to adjust that to say in 1 or 2 words. Some funky scrolling going on here to make that a little bit cleaner. I tried to trick it with this one as well. I suppose it is in the signature, but the email body says Charles is not coming to Microsoft. So maybe it would find that company name, but in the signature it says Atlassian. So GPT-3 is able to find out that the sender's name is Mike and the company is Atlassian. Awesome, super useful application of GPT-3. Ahmed asks, could you weave multiple GPT-3 generations this way? Search A1, if Jim is not mentioned, returned NA in B1. If B1 is NA, send another request for A2 and so on. I think you can get pretty advanced with this one. I think you could go as advanced as you wanted with making this programmatic. So I made a very advanced version with some prepend and append at the top of the sheet. So I could almost do Lita chat in real time and then had a row for me and a row for Lita. You do have to adjust the script though. You do have to send more things in the function and you have to figure out how to give it the start text and the response start text. So for example, I put Alan : before each response and I put Lita : before each of Lita's responses. So it gets a little bit programmatic, but there's a lot of stuff that's possible here in what we're doing. A lot of people waiting for GPT-4. If you've played with Midjourney version 4, that is really exceptional. The prompting there is super simple. So you can put quite a simple prompt into Midjourney version 4. It's unfortunately still using Discord as the interface. So you've got like an IRC black and white interface, but the outputs are phenomenal. And yes, Eris, thank you. They took down Galactica due to some political issues. If you want to have a read about that, it was released in the MIT newsletter. I think ours covered it as well, but we covered Galactica in the last live stream, also known as GAL, 120 billion parameter model. And pretty much the next day after the live stream, Galactica's demo was removed. So you can no longer demo, but you can go back and watch that live stream. All right, let's have a look at some different examples here. We had cool project names. I had a really interesting challenge when I was writing the enterprise article. I hope you've already read that, GPT-3 in the enterprise. And it was just a few weeks ago, Microsoft and OpenAI CEOs got together on the stage and they were talking about how you can use GPT-3, but also who was using GPT-3. And it's some massive, massive companies. So I wanted to actually find the web addresses for each company, and I wanted to sort the largeness of the company based on something like the market cap. This allows you to do it. Let's take a look. Let's create a new sheet here. Let's fold this up a little bit. I know the names of the companies because Microsoft and OpenAI announced them for the first time. I do want to know the domains for each of those companies. It would be interesting to know the market cap for each of those companies. And I would also like to know where their main headquarters is. All right, let's do a freeze on these rows so we can always see them. These are the details that I took. Well, actually, Microsoft and OpenAI only gave the logos, but I went and typed in the names by hand. You can actually do the rest of it completely automated. So this was the list. It goes from Accenture through to EY. Got Morgan Stanley in there. They gave a bit of a use case about Morgan Stanley. Soul Machines, which is a very similar product to Lita AI, and I didn't know that they used GPT-3. and Wipro out of India, which is a $2 trillion company in Indian currency. It converts to just a few billion in US dollars. All right, so if I wanted to find the domain for each of these, I could actually use GPT-3 and it would be pretty accurate. Again, it's not going to be entirely accurate. I would still advise you to triple check where the outputs from GPT-3. But let's ask GPT-3 to at least give it a go in finding the domain. All right, here's what I'm asking. If the cell next to me is not blank, do nothing. Otherwise, print as short as possible, no trailing slash, no new lines. The complete web address for Accenture is, and I even give it the start of the domain so it will give me a result as short as possible. This is not pulling from any sort of database or internet. Let me zoom out for a moment so I can drag this down. This is pulling from its brain and it's trying to do this as smartly, if that's an appropriate word, as possible. So you'll see it's not just defaulting to .coms, it knows that Databook is probably the .io, and Sheets, I believe, gives me a preview of that one. Maybe not today. It knows that Farmlands Cooperative is an NZ company, so it's got .co.New Zealand. I saw that the team behind Genie AI were responding to feeling grateful that OpenAI and Microsoft CEO mentioned them on stage. Got the US version of HSBC here. Finally, we've got the preview working. You'll see National Nederlanden.Netherlands. Same with Snelstart, Netherlands. It's pretty clever. What about a market cap? Now, I wouldn't be relying on this to set my stock buys or anything like that. Remember that the Text DaVinci 002 model, even though it's the latest GPT-3 engine, its knowledge down the bottom left there ends in June 2021. So the market caps may be a bit old. If A2 is not blank, do nothing. Otherwise, using numbers only and as short as possible, with no new lines, number only, no trailing B for billion, give the market cap of Accenture in billion USD in, I've repeated a few things here to get it to work, and then I've started that with a dollars symbol. Cool. I'll drag this one down as well. Doesn't matter if it's blank. We'll finish up with Office and then we'll make a note on pricing. Office is going to be also a very similar one. If Accenture is not blank, answer in one word. Accenture's head office is in the country of, no trailing space. Using that GPT-3 script that we pointed it at, using my secret key or API to bill me for each little lookup here and coming out with some pretty spectacular results. It knows that Downer's head office is in Australia. I don't know if Zamo.ai is accurate, but a lot of these look like they're pretty good guesses. All right, let's have a word about pricing. What we just did probably costs about 2 cents. GPT-3's DaVinci, including the instruct model, is 2 cents per 1,000 tokens. And the tokens are counted both in, so this entire piece, and out. So here we're probably sending, and this is just a guess off the top of my head, 10 or 15 tokens, and we're returning 1 or 2 tokens. And we're doing that 38 times. So maybe it's 4 cents instead of 2 cents. When you sign up for OpenAI's Playground, you get $18 free, which is about 900,000 free tokens. So if you say a book is 66,000 tokens, because it's 55,000 words, it would probably cost $1.30 to write an entire book, to give the prompt and then to return the book. So if we're doing sheets and sheets of this, it'll be a few cents, but to get to $1, we would need to have a book's worth of data in and out. If you want to know more about that, you can have a look at OpenAI's website on pricing, openai.com/API/pricing, where it confirms that our most powerful model here, DaVinci, is 2 cents per 1,000 tokens. All right, back to our cool spreadsheet, which has found all of this data just by being given the companies using GPT-3. Here's a really important note. Every time we refresh this spreadsheet, and I'll do it now just for interest, every time we open this spreadsheet, it's going to hit that script again and again and again, and it's going to refresh that data. It's going to reload that data. I haven't seen it do it there, but it's absolutely what happens. One way of getting around that is to copy out your, put script in here, copy out your data and then paste values only. That'll keep your data, but it won't charge you your 2 cents or your 4 cents again, which obviously would be a lot more if you're doing this with a lot more data. So I've done paste special values only. I might also do paste special format only as well to give me my red and green. So this one is static. Let's go back to our script here. I mentioned that I'd be pretty confident with this. What I would actually do before I generated my beautiful picture of all of the GPT-3 clients is you could sort descending on market cap. And I've forgotten why this tries to be funky with larger numbers. One of the wonders of live streams. I did figure this out at some stage, but anyway. There is a way to get it to not be so annoying. It might be that it thinks these are not numbers. And if I ask this data sort sheet descending, there we go, that's a lot better. It tells us that Shell is probably the biggest by market cap, followed by HSBC, Accenture, BMW, Morgan Stanley. It's got some where it's guessed the market caps, and it's got some where it just doesn't know, or the market caps are actually so low or not reported. Isn't that cool? So this is not looking up a database. This is not hitting the internet. It's using its pre-trained data from years, hundreds of years of sitting there and making connections between pieces of text to be able to allow us to do something like this. I'm sure you've thought of your own use case for how you could use GPT-3 hooked up with Google Sheets to be able to play with this. How are we going for questions here? With a sufficiently well-crafted prompt, you could use this to give GPT-3 a long-term memory, ask it about some past thing you told it, searches one cell or generation until it finds info, or not at all. Argument, yes, absolutely. You could use it in that way. For the liter conversations, you could set it up that way. Remember that you're limited by a context window of about 4,000 tokens. So if 2,000 tokens was about 4 or 5 printed pages, I think it was, 4,000 tokens is only going to be 8, 9, 10 printed pages. You're still going to have limitations for how much you can store in its memory in the cells. For example, you couldn't give it a memory of an entire book. It would still be limited. Fantastic. We solved the universe. Thanks, John. Yes, InstructGPT is way higher tokens. It's double the token count of standard DaVinci. It's 4,000 tokens for Instruct versus 2,048 tokens for standard GPT DaVinci. but that's still not really enough. And there are people that are storing this into memory in different ways. Have a look at BlenderBot 3 that we mentioned last week. The original BlenderBot was really quite smart in how it stored things pretty much often separate storage like a database while having the conversation, and then it can go and hit that database. There's more and more of that happening. Have a look at WebGPT. Gopher has got its own, or DeepMind's got its own version with Gopher where it can go out to the internet or to databases. And one of my favorites is AI21's Jurassic X, which can hit any database or catalog and also go out and hit the internet as well. So that's another solution for short-term memory. The sheet could serve as a library. Absolutely it could. Each cell can be searched and then moved on from. Yes. I've just given the basics today and what you could do with GPT-3 plus sheets. And again, one use case where I actually applied this to taking some pretty simple company names, a list of about 37 company names, generating the domain name that seemed to be accurate for nearly all of them, at least estimating a market cap in US dollars, and also finding where the head office might be. I wouldn't be using this without triple checking, but GPT-3 does a fantastic leap in terms of finding what might be the head office for that location. Mirkus asks, was that market cap number a guess or drawn from old data? I would say this is drawn from old data. Remember that GPT-3 is not storing the original document. It's storing connections between data points. So there is probably a small data point in there that says Shell 2019 market cap 267 billion US dollars. But again, we still don't know exactly how this is doing this. So right now I could ask that to convert that into, oh, we're in the static version. I could ask that to convert US dollars into another currency and it would do its best. Just like if I asked it to do its country name in French. So it's not that someone has written about Accenture's head office in French before, it's that it's giving it a go. All right, I'm going to have to duplicate here in French language. I don't mind if this stuff fails. I like having a play around with this. Let's see if we can do the company name. That might make a little bit more sense. Accenture. Fantastic. I'm sure BMW is a challenge to find out there. It's giving it a go. I think my prompt might use a little bit of work, but you'll see it's not actually finding data. It's not looking up data from a database. It's finding connections between what is the next most likely token. And John's point about temperature there, absolutely. Your temperature is really something that you could play with. We used a default temperature of 0.3 here, which is towards the deterministic side. If you bumped up that temperature, say to 0.7, you would get a more creative. And if you pulled it down to 0.1, you would get more black and white logical. It wouldn't try and be very creative. So it's not relating to the time of the data. It's relating to how imaginative it allows itself to be. Accenture is like $60 billion off. Yeah, I would not be surprised. This data ends in June 2021, but it's not supposed to be drawn from the most recent lookup of market cap. It's a guess of where that might have been in its training data. Is there a way of visualizing the vectors in use? I still recommend Jay Alama's stuff. Jay is fantastic with how he visualizes GPT-3 and the connections. So I'll put this in the comments for, oh, actually I can slam this into the comments. I'll put this into the comments for the chat, and I will add it to the description later on. But Jay, now working for Cohere AI out of Canada, looks at the vectors and looks at the description of what's going on inside of GPT-3. If you're asking about the real vectors inside the model and what they exactly look like post-training, no, we don't know that yet. There are people that are trying to reverse engineer it, but it's proving to be pretty hard. OpenAI and Stanford and some others are still saying that this is just a black box. You can't really reverse engineer it. One thing you can do, if you really want to, is to look at Alan AI's version of searching the common crawl. So the common crawl is a massive search of billions of web pages that were used to train GPT-3, and you can go and search the common crawl without overloading it to see if your query or if your keyword actually appears in the training data for GPT-3. So I have got some searches that are in here already. I've put James Gosling here, the inventor of Java. This must have been during my demonstration for 4,000 Java devs at Devox earlier in October. You'll see 2,000 results here, and you'll see the kind of strings that were fed to GPT-3 during its training. But again, we cannot reverse engineer to see exactly what it's been looking at or where it's been joining particular things together. In the playground, we used to be able to have a look at the likelihood of the returned results. I'm not sure where that flag has gone now. Oh, here we go. We do have probabilities. So if I grab one of my examples here, not that one. Here's a playground example of writing a story using simple English or the GSL. I really like to read that. So the GSL is the most common 2,000 words for people who speak English as a second language. When I was learning Mandarin, I had a poster with the most popular, I think it was 200 words, 200 characters in that language. But in any case, this was a prompt that was requested of me, and when we feed out the response, we're able to see the likelihood for each of the tokens, each of the words that are generated. So that probably doesn't answer your question on the exact vectors and what's exactly happening in there, but hopefully it answers some of the things around the edges there. If you want to know more about what it looks like, have a look at Jay Alama's work. If you want to have a look at the data that's in there and see maybe if your name's in the training data set, you can have a look there. And if you want to have a look at the likelihoods for the tokens that were returned, down the bottom of the playground is a switch called probabilities. And I'm doing full spectrum here so that I can highlight how likely a token was to be generated. And you can, of course, see that change depending on the temperature. Let's take that down to deterministic that we were talking about before. We'll click submit on this again. We'll delete our story. Have a look at how much different this might be with a lower temperature. Yes, you might find articles written about you in the C4 search that was provided by the Allen Institute for AI, by Paul Allen, who founded Microsoft, and the guys there that are doing amazing things, including Jesse Dodge and Martin as just doing incredible research and incredible work. They didn't have to do this, and they certainly didn't have to make it available, but it's incredibly useful for looking at what might have been inside most of these models. They're all using a version of the Common Crawl. CodeSmith, can you access that likelihood via the SDK into the spreadsheet so you can use it to determine which data needs review? Oh, that's a very good question. Yeah, you probably can adjust the script to feed in the likelihood via parameter. I'm not sure whether it is an available parameter. I'd also be feeding in the start and stop sequences or the injections. I'd also be feeding in the frequency and presence penalty. One of the reasons I couldn't get Lita to work exactly as it does in the playground is because Lita also has a very random frequency penalty and a presence penalty there of 0.6 and the injections. There are ways to do it. I don't do a lot of coding anymore these days, but if you wanted to duplicate this entire piece, you probably could find a way to do it. As a reminder, for those that want to have the Lita prompt, you can find that at LifeArchitect.ai/Lita, and then you can put #prompt if you want. It's about halfway down the page, and it is a link to the Lita prompt in GPT-3 for anyone to use. It's essentially open source, and you're allowed to do what you want with it. You can even adjust it. So that link takes you straight into the playground, gives you all my settings and my injections. Her temperature, or its temperature, is 0.7, but it allows you to adjust this and then have conversations. And this is exactly what I use for conversations with Lita. And then, of course, we feed her results to the synthesia.io avatar, and then I record a conversation as I watch and listen to her responding. I should be saying it. What do you think about anthropomorphizing AI? Oh, thank you for my spell check. It's really fun. Sure it is, Lita. It's a US or British English. So you can have your own conversations here. I know that a lot of people use this because it's got a decent prompt that has been proven to work across, 64 episodes now. And it's exactly, as I said, it's exactly what I use, but we just play around with the avatar on top so that it's a little bit more interesting. A lot of people are still waiting for GPT-4. I don't think it's going to be long. I'm excited about it for sure. They say sometime between December and February. John, why have you stopped coding? Do you feel like it's going to be replaced? Yeah, if you want to play around with GitHub Copilot, it's worthwhile playing around with. I found a really interesting link that I bookmarked the other day. Probably not in this one. It was a Codex demo in JavaScript, and it was really, really nice. I thought, let's have a quick look at that if I can find it. Let me just flick over to this one. Doesn't seem to be available in Google search, but I found it in my other bookmarks. Codex JavaScript Sandbox. Tell Codex what to do below, and it will generate JavaScript that runs here. So in answer to your question, coding will be around for a lot longer, but obviously we're already 2xing the output of programmers using tools like CodeGeeks, which is by Tsinghua, seems to be the biggest at the moment. Copilot, which is based on Codex, which is what we're staring at right now. And there are many, many more. I talked about all the different coding models that are available, and you might be able to see them on lifearchitect.ai/models. In any case, here's the Codex JavaScript Sandbox. I'll throw this in the comments as well for those that are interested. I don't know why this isn't easily linked. Maybe I've not found it. Let's just ask for a marquee that says, welcome to the live stream. This is how old my coding is. I learnt Ada and Java back in the day. And we also had marquees in HTML. They were banned pretty soon after. But look at how this generates the entire JavaScript, and you can export that out to have a look in JavaScript Fiddle. You could also create a stopwatch for 5 minutes. I'm not even going to write minutes in full, but you'll see that, start the stopwatch. You'll see that it's writing this code out for us immediately. I believe this is free as well. I believe this is not being charged for. Cool. It's missing a padded 0 there, but that code was created essentially from scratch. Spooky Wood. There's no use in getting a computer science degree. I was sad, but I want to learn fundamentals. Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's up to you what degree you get. There's not going to be anything wrong with computer science degree. That was my bachelor's degree, and it gave me exactly that. It gave me a foundation for how all this stuff works and how all this stuff sticks together. Wasn't as much programming as the fundamentals, the drivers. We even played around with the very roots of binary through assembly. I highly doubt Neuralink would be realistic in the next 2 years. Yeah, that's pretty sad, isn't it? Awesome. I'm open to QA before we wrap up. I would invite you to, let me keep this open so I can add this to the description later. I would invite you to play around with the scripting yourself. As you saw, we could do this in 30 seconds. And you could get really advanced with it. So if you wanted to create an entire application, if you wanted to run your day job or improve your day job if you're a consultant or a data analyst that uses Excel day to day, you could see how this could improve your quality of life. If you're a human being, I could see how this could include your quality of life. I was thinking about perhaps creating, let's see if we can do this, creating like a gift suggester. We'll do this one from scratch. If the cell next to me is not blank, for this person, what would be an ideal gift or present to give them for, let's do Christmas. No trailing space. For the cell next to me, what would be an ideal gift or present to give this person for Christmas? The ideal gift would be, let's drag this down, let's give it some color so we know what's going on. And let's see what we can do. Remember, we're limited to 10 tokens here. For my niece, a gift card to their favorite store. Maybe. Partner, a gift that is meaningful and personal. All right, let's adjust this prompt slightly. Let's say in just a few words. So my niece is still getting a gift card. Partner is getting a heartfelt. Let's make this more specific. We're still at temperature 0.3, so we are getting some nice repeats here. It's not being too creative. Now giving partner a gift card to their favorite restaurant. Oh, my colleague. Oh, this is getting boring, GPT-3. Come on. My favorite YouTube viewer. What would they get? Oh, a new computer with a faster processor. Congratulations. Wonder who that's for. What about Lita AI? Would be a good gift for her, or it. A new computer with the Lita AI. No. A basket filled with Lita's favorite. Oh, the 10 tokens got us. Yeah, what would you give your boss? Gift card to a nice restaurant. Don't know. What about my postman or my rubbishman? Gift suggestion for my rubbish man is a new rubbish bin. I'm sorry, rubbish man. They liked giving out gift cards. Edward, have you had a chance to look at Meta's Galactica AI yet? Have a look at our previous live stream. We spent an hour with Galactica before it got banned or suspended. It was a lot of fun. It really was a lot of fun playing around with what was possible. We mainly generated papers and Wikipedia articles, but you can also get it to do reasoning. And that's something that I missed. The examples that were provided must have been in the exploration section. Gave some fantastic examples of reasoning and allowing it to reason through maths problems as an example. And of course, now I can't find it. If you want to go back and have a look at that 1 hour live stream, it was my first live stream, so it was a little bit funky, but we got through it. I had a lot of fun anyway. Yellow, I'm very excited for AI, but I'm struggling with AI being able to create artwork better and faster than me. It's left me a little lost. I'm not sure what to do with my life. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That's going to be one of the first examples of career paths that are being, I think, amplified by artificial intelligence. A lot of people, of course, will see this as being a bad thing, and there will be the struggle. There will be the people that have to overcome what this is doing. But certainly I appreciate that you're one of the first cabs off the rank with finding out what we're actually going to do. And that's a really surprising thing. We thought this was going to be the last cab off the rank. I've got a graphic here that we may be able to have a look at on... Well, maybe we won't. On just how we pictured AI taking over different careers in different ways. That will be in my integrated AI. Here it is. It's called The Landscape of Human Competence. I'd love to be able to give you a reference here. But if you search up on that keyword, you will find it. I'm missing the bottom of this window, which is a little bit sad. Here's the bottom of that window. You'll see that we thought we were going to do rote memorization, arithmetic, and chess first. We got through Jeopardy, but effectively the guy who drew this, and it appears in Max's book Web 3.0 or Life 3.0, they said that the rising tide would eventually get to this peak. And one of the peaks was art. It was going to be the final frontier. And you'll see that this actually got hit a lot earlier than we thought. Even cinematography is being hit. Book writing, of course, we've already achieved. AI design, so the latest chips from NVIDIA, the H100 hoppers, were designed by AI. 13,000 circuits were designed by AI. And the Google TPUs were designed by AI as well. We've surprised ourselves with just how outrageous this has been. And even though we thought art was going to be last, it's actually one of the first cabs off the rank, and it's beaten things like social interaction and outperforming the Winograd test. I do have a new graphic on intelligence that doesn't show the Winograd test anymore. It was in there, it's in my older graphic, but have a look at how AI is outperforming humans already in so many ways. Marky Mark's musical journey. When we will have the first AI government system running countries, I'd love to see that. We did have AI put onto boards, and we had the first AI CEO. I talked about that in the memo. I think it was back in August or September. John says, I'm guessing if GPT-4 and AGI takes over, I have a feeling that the quality of life in the entire world will increase by so much. Absolutely. All of this talk of social, political correctness, and even climate change may be helped by artificial general intelligence. You may have seen Sam Altman's latest tweet on AGI. Let's see if we can pull that up. where he says that it's coming even sooner than we thought, but it's going to take a while to bed down. Here's Sam's tweet from the 17th of November. Sam is the CEO of OpenAI. He says, prediction, AGI gets built sooner than most people think and takes much longer to change everything than most people imagine. He's absolutely right. And we talked about this already in, I think it was The Sky is Bigger, the most recent report, my mid-2022 report. My end of 2022 report is coming out very soon. But if you're a member of the memo, you'll be able to read that draft within the next few days. In this mid-2022 report, I put in a chart from the United Nations. It'd be wonderful if I could find that. Oh, was it in the previous one? Was it on The Sky is on Fire? Wow, I've got so many articles that I'm not even able to find what I'm talking about. I'm sorry, we're looking at an article called Roadmap, AI's Next Big Steps in the World from July 2022. And in here, I cited a chart from the United Nations. It's towards the bottom. It was time lags between science, and particularly stuff that goes wrong, and then government policy, community policy. And you'll see that things like getting ready for reducing the impact and harm of the ozone layer, or the hole in the ozone layer, took about 80 years between knowing about it, science telling us about it, and then us actually playing with it in the 90s and early 2000s. Even worse for things like tobacco, because of how many lives that one affected. Mercury has got an even bigger lag time. 120 years between science knowing that mercury is probably not a great thing and us taking it out of thermometers and fillings and things like that. 120 years gap. But the reference to this time lag is to say that if there are 40 years on average of delayed policy action, then it's going to take a little while for AGI, which has a positive focus, to make its way through society. I know that a lot of you are very excited about that. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll wrap up with the memo. I'd love to see you guys in the memo. We get the early draft of that pushed out to paid subscribers very soon. The paid subscriptions are just outrageous. We've got now people from MIT and Berkeley and, Google and Meta AI have been in there for quite a long time. We've got a lot of the big universities coming on board. It's not designed for the big universities. I'm not writing in an academic tone, so I'd invite you to have a look at AI That Matters in plain English as it happens. That's the entire focus of the memo. And once again, thank you so much for joining us. Here's a little outro for the memo. I'll see you again. I'm thinking of doing a live stream next on AI art. We might invite a friend to play with us there, but just to show how simple it is to generate AI art with the different platforms. We might have to use Midjourney version 4 via Discord because it's text-based, but let's see what we get to. That might be the next one. Until then, thanks so much for rocking out.
Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah, I have the memo right here.
Love artificial intelligence? Excited by the explosive progress of integrated AI? I am. Join my private mailing list, The Memo.
Did you get that memo?
Yeah, I got the memo.
Get priority access to my articles, videos, and behind-the-scenes tips as soon as they're released, with a monthly or annual subscription.
Yeah. Didn't you get that memo?
LifeArchitect.ai/memo.
I have the memo.